Good evening, everybody. It's Brad Clank here in the booth. Thanks for joining us here at Apex Racing TV for week 7 of the IMSA Sportscar Championship. This week we're travelling over to Spain to the circuit to Barcelona, Catalunya. Unfortunately, it looks like we don't have any DPs here tonight, so just a host of GTE cars and a handful of GT3 cars, but hopefully we should still see a good race. We've got Daniel Leet joining me here in the booth and Scott Newton behind the scenes in production. How are you going tonight, Daniel?
Yeah, good evening, Brad, and all the viewers tuning in. Really looking forward to this one at the new circuit to Barcelona on iRacing. Should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's recent track to the service, so it's interesting to see how these guys adapt to it. I'm sure some of them have had some experience on it in other series already, but we've got just a minute or so left in quali. Looks like we've got John Peasnick currently on pole.
Yeah, and John's setting a cracking pace out there at the moment. I think he's parked it now after quali, but a 1:38.9, quickest time out there at the moment.
Yeah, and we've got Clint Shane Smith out there in the GT3s again in the Mercedes, and he's done a 1:42.5 to like taking pole there as well.
Yeah, not a big disparity as far as lap time's concerned between the GT3 and GTEs tonight. Only about 4 seconds overall. So if the quicker guys are able to stay together, I think we'll probably see this race not get some of the breaks that we might have seen in some other events so far throughout the year, which should make the racing very, very.
So we're just counting down the last 30 seconds or so for quali. Looks like it's in the evening, I believe, the track time here for this session. I could be wrong. Maybe morning, looking at the direction the sun's coming from.
Yeah, so it will be a very early morning in sim at the moment, 8:30. So pretty early on, which will really make for some really cool weather conditions for the drivers out there. Track temp currently sitting about 23 degrees, which for a start of this one should make it quite interesting. The big thing we do need to mention while quali sets up, though, it will be an hour-long race tonight as opposed to the usual 45 minutes, but the guys still needing to make a standard pit stop. And I reckon being a longer race, we're probably likely to see some tyres tonight.
Yeah, that is just something we hadn't mentioned. With it being a 60-minute race tonight instead of the normal 45, the drivers are allowed a little bit more fuel than what we see in the other rounds, but they still will be fuel limited. Definitely need to stop. And this track being quite notorious for like tyre degradation, it's likely we'll see drivers taking tyres tonight, which we don't normally see a lot of.
Yeah, definitely. And while we let the guys get gridded up on the field, we'll quickly run through the qualifying standings as everyone forms up on the grid. So taking pole tonight, John Peasnick, who set a time of 1:38.9 at 2. Just behind him, Idu Muzala, starting out a second. Daniel Weiser, our third. Michaelis Boros starting out of the fourth position. Labora Schmitz out of fifth. Blake Neck starting in the sixth position tonight. He'll have Michael Jacobson and Brian Pena just behind him. Luca Fucci, German Gill will be starting in 10th. Jason Muscat out of 11th tonight. Hudson McHale, driver we saw out last week, starting in the 12th position. Chris Harvey, James Rewald, Dusper Allen, Matthew Johnson, Russell Davis, Miki Capanala will be starting out at 18th tonight. Alex Verici will be starting from 19th. Warren Wistra out of the 20th tonight. Scott Butler looks to be starting out of the lane, but he did qualify in the 21st position as the cars just get underway here. Danny Casares, Michael Baruzzi and Craig Butterworth will round out the GTE field. In GT3 tonight, we've got Clint Smith taking the class lead with Alex Connor alongside him, Chris Taylor and Marco Basala. Jeremy Nelson, yet to take the grid.
So yeah, this being a longer track, just a partial pace lap here. So they're heading down into the chicane, getting ready to get things underway here. It does make the forming up a little bit awkward there, having the chicane. But there we go, you can see
go, green flag.
It's got a good jump.
Yeah, John managed to extend a little way. It looks like Daniel Weiser and Edu Morales in the second position, starting to scrap it out a little bit, funnel down into turn one, but looks like everyone else managing to get through pretty well unscathed. In the GT3 field, as they cross the line, looks like Clint Smith's extending his gap. He's got quite a good jump ahead of Alex Corner. Marco Baselis sitting in third. The biggest drop out of that was Chris Taylor, dropping down to fifth in class, and he's actually working on the back of Jeremy Nelson just in front of them, but the gaps up in the GTE field at the moment still sitting pretty tight.
We've got a car around down turn 7, is it?
Yeah, it didn't get a number there. Looks like it could be Labor Schmitz or Schweitzer, down the 23rd spot. So that'll drop him right to the back of that GTE field. Up front, still see John Pisnik going very defensive against Edu Morales. Just behind him, Daniel Weiser and Michalis Barossa not too far behind at all.
So yeah, the field's sort of got into single file pretty quickly here. Everyone's trying to get settled down. This being a longer race, might see people just being a little bit more cautious at the start here. It's not there's a bit more time for strategy and for things to play out during the race here, so maybe not quite as much desperation as we see sometimes.
Pisnik very defensive down. They're working their way down through turn 5 on the road and down into set corner. He's able to hold him off there, but Morales really pressuring in the back of that BMW. And I think BMW could be a strong favourite car tonight. We've seen it in some other series be very good on the tyres tonight, and already applying a lot of pressure on the back of John Pisnik's Ferrari.
Yeah, he definitely got out to a good start, but Morales has been able to gradually close that gap just over the course of the first couple laps here. We did have multiple BMWs in the top 5, 3 of them, but one of them has just fallen back a little bit. I think Jacobson must have had a small issue just a moment ago.
Yeah, I think we did miss that incident there. We'll keep an eye on and see how he recovers, but looks like everyone else still getting on pretty well with it tonight. John maybe just starting to extend that gap just a touch out in first position as they work their way down and a lap 2 onto the main.
So just having a look at Harvey there. Back up to neck in the geodesic Ford. He's definitely got some competition tonight. We're used to seeing Blake out there in the DP, sometimes running a lonely race, but currently running 5th. He's trying to get on the back of this group of 4 up the front there.
Yeah, Ford's been a bit of a surprise package throughout the season so far. It's been very quick at a couple of venues we've gone to already tonight, and much similar. I think we'll see that car come on strong later in the race. But up front, Morales really pressuring on the back there of John Peasnick as they work their way down turn number 7, I think it is, on the way up to Compass through here, both getting through single line run through there, and John actually getting a little bit better positioning in that Ferrari.
Yeah, there was not much space between him there. You can see Weiser is right on the back of these guys as well, so looks like, might have been just a little sniff of contact right there. As we head down towards the chicane, you can see the BMW's got great turn in. It's one thing I have, a bit of an error there from John. Peasnick runs wide. He's going to lose 2 positions there. So you just took it a little too early with the turn in and got the sausage curb there.
Yeah, it's one of the hardest spots on the circuit. You do come into a very tight braking zone, and trying to get the car slowed up through that, very hard. We see it in Formula 1 when they run this at this circuit. Very hard to get those cars through, and likewise tonight the guys are really struggling a little bit with that GTE.
So yeah, it's kind of broken up that battle at the front into 2 pairs there now. So we've got Morales and Weiser in the BMWs at the front, a pair of BMWs followed by a pair of Ferraris. So Peasnick's just trying to regather himself and get back onto Borsos here. So it's shaping up to be an interesting battle with these guys. You can just catch a glimpse of Blake in the background there. So he's got a little bit of work to do if he can try and work his way up to these guys. Ford is quite good on fuel though, so he might be able to do something with fuel strategy to help him get up there later in the race as well.
Yeah, and John getting a move there done, reclaims that 3rd position overall. A little further back, we just dropped down here to James Rewalt in the Ferrari. A little bit of damage on the front of that car for him, which is not going to help him much tonight, so he'll be looking to get in at some point and get some repairs done on that car. Just behind him, Mikhail Bakuzov in the Porsche there. The Porsche is probably a little further down than what I'd expected to see in the race tonight.
Yeah, we ran Barcelona in the AMF series with the GHD cars recently, and I drive the Porsche myself in that series, and it didn't feel that comfortable for me. Some other guys had a bit more pace in it, but it just seemed like it was hard to get the rear settled around here with the Porsche. But that was a fixed setup though, so these guys have a few more tools to play with. But definitely BMW and Ferrari looking strong tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. It also looks like just a little further at the back of this shot here, we've got Russell Davis actually getting passed by Mikhail Hudson in another Porsche a little further down the line. We didn't see that up on screen as we switch to it now, and this little scrap continuing on. Mikhail getting the job done again to get back around it. They start the run up now down through the long turn 3, which a couple of seasons ago caused quite a lot of controversy in Formula 1, but the guys managing to get through and looking pretty settled. That the Porsche Mikhail getting through the corner is pretty nice, and looks to be a relatively neutral car for him there.
So yeah, looks like there's quite a few drivers that are kind of paired up into battles right throughout the field here. So it's good to see. And we've got Woodstra. It looks like he's trying to defend hard against Pina here in the BMW. This is a battle for 7th at the moment.
Yeah, strong little fight this one. They're not too far off the back of Blake. You can just see cutting through the frame ahead. And both those cars managed to get through that. BMW looked very good getting over that sausage curve.
Looks like Pina might be having a slight little connection issue just there. Hopefully that doesn't persist. Looks like it's calmed down a bit there now. So the sun's just peeking its way up there now. It might be a bit of a distraction for the drivers for a couple of the corners there.
Yeah, I think the sun's going to add a really strong, good challenge for these guys coming in with that opening up, similar to what you sort of see at Le Mans where you do the wrong races there. It really does blind your eyes. We see the BMW there of Brian Pino actually spinning down on the run through.
But yeah, it's easy to make a mistake there. It's a difficult part of the track. You're kind of braking and you kind of trail brake into that turn a little bit, and it's quite hard to get it right. You got to change your direction immediately after turning in. We're just on Gil here in the Porsche. This is again another pair. He's got is it Shiwites? Sorry about the pronunciations of some of these if I get them wrong. He's actually just had a moment going off track with the chicane, and that's going to bring Harvey and Puna possibly up onto the back of him.
Yeah, battle. We just got Vasirio up on screen still, trying to hold off Gil going down the traditional racing line there. I think he might have the run here. Thinking how he's going under brakes, we'll keep an eye on that, but not able to quite get it done. The Porsche struggling, maybe just a touch, getting off the curbs through there, but the guys settle back in single file as they work their way up through the long left-hander, or right-hander, sorry, of turn 3, which this corner is going to add a lot of wear on that front tyre, so I would at least expect to see the guys maybe taking that later on tonight.
Yeah, this could even be a track where just the two left tyres could be a strategy as well, because it does work the left side so much at this track. And it's a bit of a scrap here with the guys. Looks like at the tail end here, some of the GTE cars are recovering from earlier troubles. That was Clint Smith in the lead GT3 car that we could see there. They were just trying to make their way past.
Yeah, and Clint's done again what he done the last couple of races, extended a massive lead over the back of the GT, or the front of the GT3 field. He's got himself a 9-second gap over second place. Marco Barcelos in the Audi there, so the Mercedes working very, very good tonight. And he's only a couple of tenths off the back of this GTE field, and looking at the way he's going and the lap times that he's putting up, last time by 4/10 of a second slower, which all in all not too bad. Going to be aided a lot by the draft and the battling going on in front, but potentially could see him jumping up over these couple of cars in front of him. Looks like this group going all the way up to Mikhail Hudson there. So that's 18th in track. So Clint getting on with it again tonight extremely well.
While we've been looking at this, I've just noticed it looks like Jacobson's been able to get up onto the back of Blake Neck. I think he had some issues earlier on. No, sorry, it's Woodstra who's been able to get onto the back of Jacobson, sorry.
Yeah, these two have actually just changed position just recently. It wasn't only a lap ago that we saw Woodstra out in front in that Porsche there, but very committed under brakes. Sorry, they called it wrong earlier. The guys working their way now to turn 7 and 8 on up to that high speed turn 9, which they really can only take one line there. You just see Woodstra grab a little bit of that dirt, but down here into turn 10, probably one of the best passing spots for these guys to get a move done.
So we jump on board with Jacobson, just looking at the gearbox camera here at the back. You see Wooster's trying to use all the track. Oh, Jacobson runs a little bit wide, misses the apex. He's going to have to go defensive here. And Wooster applying the pressure through the chicane. Jacobson holds on, looks like he's got an okay exit, but Wooster is going to be able to sit in the slipstream here. We'll see if that plays any effect. Closing, and he pulls to the inside. If he can get the overlap, he might be able to get the move done.
Yeah, it was a strong run down into turn number 1 there. I think he was probably helped a little bit by Jacobson just easing out of that throttle and letting him progress through their smart awareness, especially with only 14 minutes on the clock. Got a long way to go still in this one with an hour out here tonight, and plenty more racing still to come from these two. A little further down, Gill and Muskrat still scrapping over the 10th and 11th position. Just behind that, Brian Pena, who we saw having that spin early on, working his way back up into contention here at the moment. Only a couple of tenths of a second off the back of the Muskrat Ferrari just ahead of him.
So yeah, it's 15 minutes in and we've got quite a few cars still close together. So it does bode well for this middle section of the race, heading up and heading into pit stops. There's going to be a lot of strategy options for these drivers to try and see how they can work their way forward. So pretty interesting to see how early or late some of these drivers decide to come down the lane. Morales has just continued to slowly pull away from Weiser. He's extended the lead out to about 1.5 seconds now. And it's been pretty consistent with the lap times. The best times between them are only a 10th apart too, so yeah, very similar pace. Morales has just done a purple sector through sector 1, so he's still pushing on, trying to extend that lead.
Just watch the way that BMW is getting through the corners, riding the curbs exceptionally well. At the moment, doesn't look like he's having too much issue. The car being very neutral through the high-speed corners, and likewise the car of Weiser just behind him in the other BMW. And as you can see down the bottom there, the gap, if anything, just a touch in favour of Morales. See him working through turns 10 and 11. At the moment, this is a turn 12, very hard to get the car to hold the nose on the inside of that corner, and then the run down through 13, 14 and 15 where you come into that really tight chicane to finish off the back of the lap. That was put in just to slow the race down a little bit, where the guys would traditionally go on through turn 13 there, but certainly adding a lot to it.
Yeah, BMW is definitely looking very stable, particularly through Campsa, the fast right-hander up the hill there. That's a very difficult corner, and if the car's not feeling that good, you really have to stay away from the curb, not use too much curb on the inside there. But these guys have been able to really attack that corner and use all the track there, which definitely pick up a couple of tenths just through that section if you're able to do that. So just making their way through some GT3 traffic there. Driver doing a good job of staying out of the way though.
I believe that car getting a lap there was Jeremy Nelson, currently sitting down in the 26th spot. He's got a little bit more traffic coming through on him as well as we jump back up. John Piesnik and Michalis Boris rattling over the 3rd position. Those two not separated by much after the little issue that John had through the back end of the lap. About 4 laps ago now, and this fight's still raging on. Blake Neck not too far behind, only about 2 seconds behind these guys. We'll keep an eye on him as you see him just cross into the back of frame now. And the battle between Piesnik and Boris going to rage on, I think, for quite a long time tonight. These two very evenly paced, looking at the laps they've been putting up.
Yeah, ever since John had that little moment earlier on, these guys have been pretty much glued together. See how they deal with this GT3 traffic here.
Yeah, I think Nelson will play pretty smart. Just stay down the racing line and allow these two to come past him. He doesn't really need to get involved in this fight, especially being very early on in the race. You see John down the inside. He should get a move done relatively easy on the run to turn 1, but we'll see whether Boris is able to go through, and he does late in through to turn 1 there, so that allows this fight to still continue.
Yeah, that was good. The GT3 driver just sort of opened the steering a little bit there to let them through, and we've got a very close battle here. Wow, look at this gaggle of cars that's coming down the straight. And we've got Pina. He's just trying to make a move. He's in the slipstream there. If he pulls out, he's going to make it 3 wide. Decides not to. And manages to hold off Muscat behind. So Gill's been able to just pull a little gap over those guys throughout the first turn there.
Yeah, Gill getting on with it a little bit more. Really surprised to see so many cars. We've got 6 here, all the way down to the Alan Despero just behind in the final Porsche there. So all these guys really putting on a fantastic little show at the moment. A lot of racing room being given at the moment, which I'm sure later on, if these guys all manage to find their way together after pit stops, is not going to be a favourite or really allowed. They'll fight for every last position that they can. But right now we're watching the scrap from 11th to the 15th position on screen.
So yeah, great battle. So as we were saying before, with the longer race and the pit stop, it's going to be and we see Gill just gets the sausage curve on the inside there, lifts the wheel right up off the ground, had to get out of it. He's lost all the momentum there. So Pina's been able to close right back up onto him heading into the chicane here. You can see Pina really attacking the curb there at the chicane as well. So it's these BMW drivers certainly not too scared to use those curbs.
No, not at all. I mean, if you can get the car set up right to get up over them and really utilise it, it certainly makes your life a lot easier. You can gain quite a bit of track position around here if you're able to do it, especially through that final corner or set of complex from basically turn 13 through to the final run through 16. You can make up a lot of time there, as we can see. Alan trying to get past the BMW there, Chris Harvey. These guys are scrapping down over the 13th and 14th position respectively, working their way now out of the long turn 4 down into turn 5, which actually is going to give Harvey a good chance. He just thinks better of it, tucks back in, and these guys fighting on pretty well now. That gap though between the 6 cars that we were just mentioning really has started to extend quite a bit now.
Yeah, there's a few little gaps formed in amongst that group there now, so we'll see if these guys can work back onto the back of that group.
Yeah, as you can see the timing down on the bottom right screen, that gap still starting to decrease. It did blow out at one point to just over 2 seconds between these two, between Alan and Harvey there, and it has dropped back down to that 0.7 of a second. I think it'll continue to sort of hover around that portion. We might need to jump quickly back up to Gill and Verosa. I think those guys are scrapping here over the 10th spot, only 0.2 of a second as they fire down towards turn 1. These two BMWs looking very, very competitive between each other.
And yeah, Pinot is there in the black BMW. He makes the move down the inside. So I guess that job done pretty easily in the end. So that moves him up into 10th. And Gill's now going to come under a bit of pressure from Muscat if he doesn't gather things back up quickly. Oh, Muscat running wide through 3. Don't think that's the intended line through there.
No, but it's easy to do. You do carry a lot of speed as you run up in towards that corner, and it's very easy to overshoot. It's a very tight initial turn in, and you run the car extremely wide. So trying a little bit of an alternate line there, which ultimately hasn't paid off for him yet. But he hasn't lost a lot of ground comparative to these guys. The gap did extend just a touch to just over 0.6 of a second, but with the draft here, he should be able to really close that back in.
So earlier we were looking at Jacobson and Woodstra with that battle, and Woodstra made his way past in the Porsche. Now looks like he's fallen into the clutches of Schweitz in the Ferrari. Scandinavian driver pulls out a slipstream, looks to the inside here. Looks like he's got the overlap and should get this done. Does tighten the apex to 2 there a little bit, makes it a little bit awkward, but he manages to hold on, and he's going to try and go about chasing down that gap to Woodstraw now. It's quite a gap that's opened up there, though.
Yeah, very. Once Woodstraw got past, he had a little bit of a cheeky move back towards the racing line just to block on the run into turn 1, which might have thrown Jacobson just a touch there in that BMW, but as you say, that gap starting to extend out a little bit more now. We're at just on 0.8 of a second as the guys work their way through mid portion. But spoke to
he's gone around. Yeah. Commentator's curse there. Strikes again, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's it. Schweitzer dropping down into the 8th position. Verosa now in the BMW behind, really closing it at a rapid rate of knots. So gap just on 0.3. We'll keep an eye on that, as we're going to have to see whether Schweitzer's able to clear the dirt off the tyres quicker and sooner rather than later on. But Verosa having a pretty quiet run, up 1 spot from where he started, sitting in the 9th spot and continuing on pretty well.
So we're just touching base with the GT3 field here. This is Barcelos. He's currently running in P2 in class. And here we just caught one of the GTE guys having a moment there behind. And then we've got Connor in the Mercedes. He's P4 in class, I believe.
Actually, P3 at the looks. I mean, you actually just caught a glimpse too of our race leader going through on him as well. So Morales now working his way past the 22nd position, and he'll turn his attention a little further up. Chris Taylor up on screen, another one of the Mercedes out there tonight. He's actually gained 4 spots from where he started, so pretty good run for Chris. And Jeremy Nelson sitting in the 15 class position, 24th overall, and up 2 spots from where he started. But out front and continuing the runner form that he's had, Clint Smith currently up 7 spots from where he started tonight, so a huge effort from him. And very, very competitive lap time, similar to what we saw him do in qualifying, and finding himself only about 6 seconds off the back of Hudson McHale in the 17th position in the Porsche. So that BMW working very well again.
So yeah, he's been able to put a couple of the GTE field behind him once again, as we've been accustomed to seeing. There's a few that have struck trouble, but he's been able to clear a couple that are still running as well. So another good drive from Clint. And looks like Piesnik's been able to pull a little bit of a gap over Borsos, and Blake Neck is slowly but surely playing himself into this battle. If he continues to march his way forward, we could see a 5-way, well, not a 5-way battle for the lead, but this bunch of 3 here fighting for the last spot on the podium.
Absolutely, and I mean, for the viewers that are regular to the series and especially watched last season, they'd be familiar with Blake in the Geodesic L1 Stars DPI. He's made a switch this season, gone off to GTE. Unfortunately, the DPI not getting a huge amount of participation the last couple of seasons, and I think for Blake to jump across the GTE field, certainly going to give him a very strong challenge out there tonight. iRating in the class, we might see if we can pull that up as well. We've got a couple of very experienced drivers out in the field, a couple of guys up over 5,000 out there at the moment, and looking at our highest, it's Michaelis Boros just over 7,000 as he's struggling to get through a little bit of lap traffic there.
Yeah, you could see Piesnik straddled that curb on the exit, and then the GT3 car followed him. Just made it a little bit awkward for Borsos to make his way through there. Fortunately, the traffic moves out of the way, and those guys are both through cleanly now, but it has given Piesnik just a little bit more breathing room again. But Blake's certainly just a tenth by a tenth, making his way up towards the rear of that Ferrari. So be able to see if he can make something happen.
Yeah, definitely. And if anything, as you can see, the gap on screen at the moment has gradually decreased since about lap 12. They're down from just short of 1.8 seconds down to 0.8 of a second, and the out of the traffic, they're certainly going to continue on. But just for reference, as these guys now turn in to turn 7 and number 8, our race leader Morales working down in towards turn 10. So quite a bit of a gap between these top 5 cars starting to form up now.
Yeah, we're just about to hit the halfway mark, so there's been a bit, plenty of laps to extend those gaps a little bit now, but it's anyone that's going to take tyres, we might see them in the lane quite soon, because it would make sense to sort of split the tyres sort of half-half. So just keep an eye out to see if we have anyone heading down the lane over in the next lap or two. None of these guys are elected to do that just yet.
No, and I think being an open race, we know that in some other events previous to this one, other seasons gone by, we know how strong the Ford is on fuel. Best I think we've come close was around 38 minutes, 45-minute race. So for these guys here tonight, especially with the longer track run, as we can see, Jacobson and Schweitzer just coming down the lane for their first stops. These guys will be playing a lot with fuel numbers to try and extend the range out as best as possible. But with the added couple of cars coming down the lane, that's going to give us a really good indication of what we're potentially looking at stop time wise, and we'll keep that updated as those numbers come to hand as well.
Yeah, these guys, they might even be looking at taking tyres, perhaps, or one of them. We'll see. Stationary time's about 13 to 16 seconds there between them, so maybe not.
Yeah, based on those times, you'd expect that potentially these guys haven't taken tyres, or if they have, maybe just the one. Jacobson coming out behind Muskrat there as well, so he finds himself down in the 13th spot at the moment. Muskrat will be very hard to try and get by in that nice looking liveried Castrol Ferrari, very reminiscent of the old Toyota Sleeker World Rally cars from years gone by.
Oh, Jacobson just throws it down the inside. Muskrat didn't make that too difficult. He's using a few different lines though that we've seen already tonight, so he may not be giving that position up. Could just be the lines he was using.
Yeah, you're probably going to find it a little bit hard now too. The car being light, probably starting to move around a little bit more on him than what we're seeing from Jacobson there, as the guy's now getting down through turn 10. Slow run through here in turn 11 and the long run through turn 12, where you really need to short shift the car to get it to ultimately turn through the corner here. Looks like our race leaders are still continuing on. Nothing untoward there, kind of what we'd expect to see, but it looks like we got Gill pushing on.
And that's Alan in the lane in the Porsche.
So we might have a couple more guys considering coming in as well, but good to see at least another guy down in the lane as well.
Yeah, well, he was kind of in the middle of that pack there, so he might have thought just to get the stop done, come out in some clean air, and perhaps try the undercut on a couple of these guys. So we'll see if that plays out. 10.9 stationary time. That's I think that's the shortest we've seen. So you might have been able to be a bit more frugal on the fuel up to this point. So that could play out quite well for him if he can put a good outlap in.
Yeah, certainly be interesting to see how the pace of that car goes. 10 seconds of fuel around here for a 1 hour race does seem a little bit low, but no doubt all these guys really managing the fuel numbers just to see what they can do. Here, Blake Neck continuing to close up a little bit further on the back of Michalis Boros there in that Momo-sponsored Ferrari. Looks like we've got our third place car, Alex Connor in the GT3 field, sorry, has come in, but we might hang on board here with Blake for a lap around the Barcelona circuit just to see what these drivers are actually having to deal with tonight.
Blake feeding into the lane, deciding to come in and fall out of that battle. But we'll see how that plays out with the strategy. But the car looking quite stable from the onboard. There was a couple of apexes where he probably didn't feel like he quite got there, but it seemed to be behaving pretty neutral. So we're looking at Piesnik here, and Borsos has been able to close up on him a little bit again here. John did extend that gap a little bit before, but looks like Borsos has been able to bring that down. You can see it was out to about 1.6 seconds. He's brought it back down around a second or so off that.
Yeah, Piesnik's car looking to slide just a touch as they run through turn 9 there, and they're back end just getting out a little bit from him, so it could be starting to succumb a little bit to the setup.
There's a car off that. Just ahead of them. There's a car off track there as well. Didn't quite catch who it was. I think it might have been one of the BMWs just rejoining after a spin.
Yeah, I am showing our race leader Morales sitting in the second position, so I'm not sure what's happened to him there. He might have potentially had a spin. He hasn't come down for a stop yet, so very surprised to see him down here. We'll have to keep an eye out as what's happened, because he had extended the gap over Weiss quite a long way.
I think that might have been the car that I saw. I'm just about to see what happened here. Yeah, it just catches the curb, heading down through. That's around the 9 and 10 complex. So able to gather it back up quite quickly, but the lead that he had wasn't that large. So Weiss has been able to come through.
Yeah, it's going to hurt Morales a bit. See him getting stuck in a little bit of lap traffic there, having to work his way through. I think he might have got away with that one, as you say, pretty well. But the gap first to second, as you can see, Weiss off in the distance there, 2.5 seconds.
So, yeah, he's definitely lost some more time there with the other cars. So it could be a good time to just come into the lane and do a reset, sort of calm down a little bit, and then get back out on track and try and chase him down. We've got quite a few cars in the lane at the moment. Harvey, Rubwald, Mikhail, and Vescio, all in the lane. And Vescio's actually longer stationary time there, 40 seconds. He may have taken tyres. And it looks like Rubwald may have as well.
Yeah, I'd expect if you're taking a stop of that long, you've probably taken the tyres there. We also saw race leader Daniel Weiss just come down the lane as well. That's put Edu Morales back up into the lead of the race, so we'll keep an eye there and see what he can extend. Looks like Boris has also come down the lane for his respective stop as well, and a lap before that we also had John Peasnick down the lane for his respective stop as well. He had a 10.8 seconds, so we'll keep an eye to see whether he's able to get it back ahead of Boris, but Boris got a lot of traffic getting out of the lane there.
Well, how's this going to work for Blake? You can see him coming down the straight there as well.
Yeah, judging by the lap times that have gone on the last few laps, I think Blake actually got held up a little bit there, which ultimately did compromise, because he wasn't too far behind off the back of Boris. We saw that gap only about 0.8 of a second. It has extended now to just on 2.5 seconds.
Yeah, it hasn't quite played out how he would have hoped perhaps with that earlier stop. We've got GT3 traffic here and some lap traffic in GTE to take care of. So Jacobson's he's been in a battle with someone, one car or another, pretty much since the start of the race. Looks like he's having to defend a little bit here against Schweitz. These two have been pretty close for probably a good sort of 15-20 minutes now.
Yeah, it looks like both our leaders too down the lane for their respective stops while we keep watching this fight as well.
Jacobson just pinches himself for space there, and yeah, it just loses the momentum. Then Schweiss is able to take the inside heading up into Campsa, which then hurts Jacobson's momentum even more on the exit. So let's see if he can settle down and get back onto the back of him, continue the battle. Schweiss is pretty quickly opening up a gap there though, so he's going to need to gather that up quickly if he wants to try and close that in again.
Yeah, definitely. We might also want to have a jump up to our first and second place at the moment. Weiss and Morales are fighting it all over, and just in the back there you can see GT3 class leader Clint Smith not too far behind, but Morales came out only a couple of tenths of a second off the back of Weisser after his stop, and these guys are really going to start up a good fight for this final 19 minutes of the race here.
Yeah, we should see a good battle here. The Morales does have the best lap of the race so far, but it's literally only a tenth quicker than Weisser, so it's not like he has a really big pace advantage. Now, these guys are really similar in iRating as well, so that should be a good battle in the closing stages.
Yeah, I think it's going to really lead to some really exciting racing. Just watching off the back here of Weiss's car, noticed it took a very late entry to try and straighten out the run out of turn 10 there, which gave him a little bit of gap over the trailing car Morales there, but Morales going very deep on the run in. But you see down the bottom we've got the strategy for pit stops where all the guys came out in their respective laps that they've come in on. So you see Morales coming in the last time by lap 24, Weiss a lap early, so depending on how they went with fuel numbers and the pit stop stationary times were very similar between both these cars. We could see them potentially having to tweak the numbers just a touch at the back end of this one.
So yeah, Woodster came out quite close behind Blake as well when he did his stop last lap, so Blake's gonna have a little bit busy in the mirrors compared to how it was looking just before.
Yeah, but I think Blake, looking at how he can do it, should be able to get up there. This scrap's really starting to heat up at the front. The gap down to 0.3 of a second, absolutely nothing in it right now as they run through turn number 9. Morales just a little bit wide there, not able to get the car in towards the apex. He's going to consider a look down into 10, not quite close enough to take a similar line through this portion of the car, the circuit. Both cars getting a little bit of that curb, but the BMW, must be said, looking extremely strong out on not only the tyres but overall lap pace tonight.
Yeah, we can still see the first 4 cars all in that shot heading down from turn 10 there. So we're almost 45 minutes into the race, which is the normal length that we have in this series, and we've still got 4 drivers in the same camera shot there on the straight again. So it's not too bad considering this is a new track to the series, and Morales has a really strong exit out of the last corner, gets to run down the straight, he makes a move into turn 1. Weiss is going to have to try really hard to hang on to the back of him here and pressure him. It's probably the only way he's going to be able to do anything about it now is to try and pressure a mistake early on before Morales is able to get a gap.
Yeah, I think he's going to want to get the move done and redressed if he can, not too far up ahead of these guys. We've got the Ferrari of Rewald and Pina just ahead of these guys. A little further back as well. This fight with Blake Neck and Earl Woodstra starting to really heat up. And these guys scrapping over that 5th and 6th position. The Porsche Woodstra, though, has come on very nicely throughout the course of this run.
And I think Pina was just able to get that move done on Rewald. So I'm not sure if we'll be able to have a look at that. But just saw that pop up on the timing. So just coming out of IMSA. Yeah. Guess the exit. The other car didn't really go defensive at all, didn't make it too hard there, so he'll continue to try and march his way forward. So Woodstra's been the car that has been carving his way through the field though since the start of this race. He is up 14 positions. Oh, and we see Barcelos has a spin, and one of the GT cars just got involved there. You might have just seen a incident cap.
Yeah, I think that car might have been Chris Taylor involved in that one as well. So keep an eye on that. A couple of battles, you can still see him on screen. You've got John Piesnik and Barossa, that gap extending, but just behind. Look at Woodstra on the back and neck in the Ford there. Run down to turn 1 and might see if we can duck back to that little scrap, but Woodstra's all over the back of the Alpine Stars geodesic Ford there. In the hands of Blake Neck, these guys really scrapping hard.
Yeah, so just confirming the Ferrari there was Schweitz, and that contact unfortunately did put him over the cap and he's DQ'd out of the race. So not much he could do to avoid it though.
No, it's a little unfortunate there, and all the best for him coming back in later throughout the season. But this fight with 13 minutes still left on the clock, Blake and Woodstra, I don't think there's going to be much separate them for the last 15 minutes of this one. The Porsche, if anything, probably looking a little more settled at the back half of this race. Obviously, all these cars did not take tyres, maybe with the exception of Alan, who's down in the 8th position, but quite a long way off the back of this fight currently. But the Porsche really getting a good drive, especially through that slower complex turns 13, 14, 15, just before we get onto the straight. Not quite able to get it done this time by, but certainly closing up ever increasingly onto the back of Blake Neck now.
Yeah, he's just lining that up. We have seen him make a move into turn 1 earlier in the race, so we know he can do it. That was a BMW who was up behind earlier. So whatever he's got that setting on the Porsche tonight with the ratios and wing setting, he's definitely got the top end speed to make a move into 1. And he's going to have a look here.
And Blake sees that move
it's
come,
going a bit deep though.
Opens the door, and as you say, yeah, Woodstrip going very wide through the turn 5 complex there. That's going to drop him down a fair way now. He's got a lot of work to do if he wants to get back up on the back of Blake.
Yeah, it's going to allow Blake to relax a little bit. We won't have to focus so much on what's happening behind and just eyes forward and try and maintain that gap now. It's gone out to about 1.3 seconds. Here we are with Clint Smith, and he is 35 seconds ahead of the next guy in the GT3 class, just pretty much cruising, or not cruising at the speed that he's driving, but he definitely doesn't have any pressure from behind, so yeah, kind of cruising to a pretty easy victory from the looks of it. A small field in GT3, unfortunately, tonight, so he didn't have a lot of competition out there.
No, but he's done a very good job, similar to what we saw the last couple of times out in the championship. He's been very strong with the setup that he does on the Porsche. Obviously, he doesn't make a lot of changes, and made mention of that last week when he took the race win there as well. But for whatever he's done with that car and the way he's got it set up for him at the moment, working very, very nicely. Must point out that livery that he's got on the car looks quite spectacular on there as well. Suits the car very, very nicely, and that was only recently debuted. I think it was a couple of rounds ago at the Circuit of the Americas. So Clint really stepping up the game since going out on his own, and that car looking fantastic again as always.
Yeah, the new paint definitely hasn't slowed the car down at all, so he must be happy about that. So we've got significant gaps in the rest of the GT3 field, with Barcelos is 36 seconds back from Clint. Then behind him we've got Connor, another 33 seconds back, and another Mercedes. And Taylor's 18 seconds back from him in another Mercedes. And Nielsen is rounding out that field at the moment. He's a further 52 seconds back. So again, Mercedes dominated, and just the one Audi out there this evening.
Yeah, I think it's still great that we do see the Audi getting a little bit of love. I know I certainly love that car, and I know Scotty behind the camera has a bit of a soft spot in his heart for that car as well. But it does seem like with this championship, the Mercedes probably the easiest car to get the most out of, as evident by what Clint's doing out there tonight. But great to still see a few guys wanting to get on board with the Audi and see what they can still do with it.
Yeah, well, it's I mean, even though these drivers are got some significant gaps there in the field, it's still good to get out, get some more mileage. They might be not as familiar with the track as some other drivers as well, just trying to get some extra seat time here. And plus, when you've got someone of Clint's caliber in the field, it's good to have that yardstick to measure yourself against each week. So hopefully those guys continue to turn up throughout the remainder of the season. Just jumping back up into GTE field here. So Alan's just working his way up on some traffic there, I believe. He's got a significant gap ahead of him to Jacobson for position. So not sure he'll be able to advance too much further unless there's some misfortune ahead of him. They've got quite a range of nationalities in the field tonight as well. Drivers from Benelux, Diach group, obviously a few Australian New Zealand drivers from Scandinavia. So yeah, very mixed field here tonight, which is good to see as well. So Harvey's just trying to make his way up onto Vesio here. And I believe he was one of the drivers which did take tyres at the stop. Just looking at the stationary time now. So actually Vesio looks like he took tyres. Harvey did not. He was only stationary for about 11 seconds. So if he is able to get onto this car and make a move, that's quite good considering he's on much older tyres.
Yeah, a little surprised to see the tyre strategy not work out for Vesio there. I would have thought, having taken those and getting himself in some clear air, probably would have paid off a bit for him. Just making sure that his Vesio, not really getting the most out of that car, but Harvey's certainly coming after him here in that black BMW, sitting in 10th outright, up 9 spots from where he started tonight. So it's been a great run for Harvey over the line here. Just over 7 minutes to go, and not much in it, but should get a move done here pretty quickly to promote himself up inside that top 10.
Having said that, having a look, Vesio is up 10 positions on his starting position, so he has made some good progress throughout the race, and he is the first car in the standings at the moment that has had that longer stop for tyres. So there's a couple other drivers which did the same, that they're further back in the field. So he probably has made the best of that strategy out of the drivers which went that way, but probably not the best option overall.
No, I think overall, knowing what we know now, and hindsight's a wonderful thing, if you're able to get the car working right with the tyres, retaining that little extra track position, I mean, that's a 30 seconds that he's effectively given up there as a result of taking the tyres. That would promote you a long way up the road around this circuit. It's almost half or a third of a lap around here, based on the lap times that we are seeing from the guys so far tonight. That puts you in a really good position to be further up the field. Blake Neck still pushing on down in the 5th position. Woodster is able to really close that gap back up now. It wasn't long ago we saw him running wide, but Blake just flashing the lights, letting a little bit of the lap traffic know that he's coming through, which gonna possibly cause a bit of a compromise here in the final portion of the lap.
Yeah, that was a little bit awkward. GT3 driver could have possibly made that a little easier. No contact and no change of position, so play on.
It also looks like 2 Vesios jumped in the lane for a stop as well again, so I'm not sure what's happened to that.
Yeah, that is unusual, because as we cut away from him, he was actually extending that gap a little bit, so it looked like he had a moment, just settled back down and started to pull away from Harvey, but yeah, back in the lane, things obviously not going to plan. So we've got Blake and Woodstride is just coming up onto the back. I believe this is Pinner that we're just coming up to lap. And he's in position 13, I believe, if that is the driver in that car.
Yeah, not really helping Blake out much at all. Blake really flashing the lights, letting him know that he wants to get through, and a little surprised to see Pinner not just stepping sideways to allow these guys to continue the fight. And obviously sitting over
lost the rear
as he loses.
Oh no!
And that loss, that's into the side of Woodster there, left him nowhere to go.
And I believe that's hit the incident cap for that driver, as we see the car disappear, so he's disqualified himself with that error. And Woodster had nowhere to go. It was just terrible luck for Woodster there. Hopefully he hasn't picked up any significant damage. Some drivers do get a little bit nervous when they've got the faster traffic coming through. It looked like he just changed his line a little bit, went wide quite late in the braking area heading into the corner, and the rear just snapped around.
Yeah, I think that was a spin that potentially could have been avoided earlier on. We did see at the start of the lap Blake coming down with the lights aflash into turn 1, and then again up through the top of turn 4 there. And realistically, when you know you've got a couple of quick cars like that coming through, ideally when you're not in contention for a position in it, it's probably better to just step sideways and let that fight continue. Unfortunately, it has come at a price for Woodster there, collecting that damage on the right front of that car, which has dropped him a little bit now off the back of neck, so that's going to ultimately hurt that fight. But a little further ahead of these guys, we've got John Piesnik and Michaelos Barossa still scrapping it out. These guys have not been far apart much at all tonight, and really going to close it up for the final portion of this race.
Yeah, again, they haven't been far apart this whole race, these guys. So it'll be interesting to see if Borsos is just playing strategy here. got a bit of traffic heading towards them in the front too, and we've only got about a touch over a minute left for the clock to count down. So Morales and Weiss are not far away from hitting the final lap of this race. See Borsas really closing up on Piesnik here, possibly trying to set something up for the straight into turn 1. Really close through the chicane, just trying to line up a great exit through the last turn here.
Yeah, looking at the way Piesnik was able to get out through the back end of 15 there, managed to extend a little bit of a gap. We are on the final lap now of this race. Race leader just going through turn 2 now, but Boris really strong through that final section of the lap, so really close up from turn 10 all the way through to turn 15 there, and not giving an inch to Pete.
Yeah, he's just really trying to pressure Piesnik into a mistake to hopefully get the run on him on that exit, but Piesnik was wise to it and didn't let the pressure get to him. He's got a great exit and has even been able to extend that gap again just a touch through the first sector here. So we guess a little bit wide, a little bit of a wiggle on the exit of turn 4 there.
Yeah, it's a little sniff that'll invite Boris back into this one. The gap closing up just a touch, still sitting on 7/10 as they work their way for the final time through turn 9. We've got the lap car there. I believe that is Schwarzer in the Ferrari just ahead of these guys. We'll keep an eye on that to see whether he's involved. Our race leader just coming through turn 12 now for the final time, and it's been a great run for Morales so far.
Yeah, he didn't have it all his own way with that spin earlier and had to make his way back to the front. But he didn't panic and just got settled down and got on with the job. It's a great drive. And he comes across the line. Followed reasonably closely by Weiser in the end. And Piesnik's just able to hold on for the podium there. Borsas flashing the lights just behind. So I think probably just acknowledging that he enjoyed that battle there.
Yeah, definitely. Blacknet come home 5th and Woodstra at home in 6th. Clint Smith up on screen at the moment, coming down into turn 14 and 15 complex for the final time. Gets the car up over the curbs nicely once more. Run through turn 16 and Clint will come home. I think that car might have coughed and spluttered across the line there, and he should get the win quite comfortably for round 7 tonight.
So, yeah, there might be a few drivers running a little bit low on the fuel. Actually, Alan was, I believe he was the driver early in the race we saw with a really short stop, like a 10-second stop. So I'm impressed that he has got those fuel numbers right. I don't think he had to go down through the lane again. No, he's only done the one stop. So yeah, he's definitely done his research on the fuel numbers and bringing that car home. We've got Marco Barcelos coming across the line in the Audi to take P2 in the GT3 class, with Alan taking P8 in GTE, coming across the line behind him there.
Yeah, good run there for Marcos Barcelos in the Audi. Did lose a little bit of time overall to what we saw from Clint Smith, but great to see a couple of different cars in the top 3 for the GT3 field. GTE tonight, great to see a couple of BMWs and the Ferrari there of Piesnik rounding out the podium as well.
What are your thoughts, Daniel, on the slightly longer format that compared to what we see the other weeks?
Look, I think it adds another bit of action to the series. Traditionally, as you say, we do see a 45-minute race, and we've seen that for quite a few seasons now. But to throw in the mix, it's almost like an endurance race, basically moving that to an hour. Really makes the guys consider a little more option as far as fuel and tyre strategy to get these cars home. So I think it adds just that little bit more excitement, and really makes the drivers and team engineers really consider the options that they've got when setting these cars up.
Yeah, it does seem to widen the fuel window to just bring some of the a little bit wider choices in for the strategy for the guys. So we're just about to bring the results up on screen here now. So we have Edgar Morales taking out the win tonight, and Daniel P. Weiser in second place. John Peasnick took out third. Milkos Boros in fourth. Blake Neck in fifth. Erwin Woodster took his Porsche to sixth and gained 14 positions in the process. So great drive from him. Michael Jacobson in seventh. Duspara Allen in eighth. Chris Harvey ninth. John Me Gill in 10th, Jason Muscat 11th, James Ruwalt in 12th, Hudson McHale 13th, and then we have Clint Smith bringing home the Mercedes in P1 for the GT3 class, followed by Alex Vesio, Russell Davis in GTE, and then we're into the GT3 remaining GT3 drivers, Marco Basalis, Alex Connor, rounding out the podium for GT3. And then we had Craig Bennyworth in GTE and Chris Taylor and Jeremy Nelson in GT3. Again, that rounded out that field. And then we have drivers who struck a little bit of trouble throughout the race. Brian Pinner, Denny Caceres, Luca Fiocchi, Lubmore Schweitz. That was the driver we saw in the Ferrari that got DQ'd earlier. Mikhail Boxula, Matthew P. Johnson, Mickey Campanella, and Scott A. Butler. So that rounds out our field tonight. Apologies to any drivers I may have struggled with their pronunciation there. Some of these drivers quite like the field that we get in these events does change from week to week, so we don't know them all as well as what we may do when we're covering leagues. We do have a couple of drivers in the interview waiting area to have a chat to us. So we've got Erwin Woodstra in the booth here. Hi, Erwin. This is Brad in the booth, and mate, that looked like a very entertaining drive. 14 positions gained throughout the race, and some good battles.
Yeah.
How was it from your perspective?
It was great. The first couple of laps, I just went for the moves. I told myself before the race, you know what? I fucked up quali. I'm just go for every move that I see, which I did. It worked at the start, and just went up to, I think it was P8. Then I got stuck behind someone for a little bit, and after that, well, the race just went on its own. I tried catching P5, and it worked till a certain point. Let's just say it like that. Yeah, no, it was a great race from my perspective. I wish I could have gotten top 5, but what do? You know, you can't avoid that.
Well, you've definitely sort of recovered from what may have been a disappointing qualifying for you, but 14 positions in a 60-minute race it's keeping pretty busy. So I don't think you should be too disappointed on just missing out on the top 5. Was there any particular part of the track where you found your setup just wasn't quite working tonight, or is there things you could take away from this?
Definitely the last sector, last corner. I had a lot of on the end of the stints. I had a lot of oversteer coming out of on the exit, going onto the start finish straight. You saw that after the incident. I just couldn't care anymore and just didn't correct it right. But that's definitely setup work, and the gearing. When I'm in slipstream, I top out in 6th gear, so I need to change that as well. But for the rest, the setup feels absolutely fine.
Yeah, we did see make a couple of moves into turn 1, but there was that towards the end of the race where you were up behind Blake there. It just looked like you didn't quite have the legs into turn 1 to make a move on him. But yeah,
I don't know if it was just the Ford that had the top end or his setup, but damn, he was fast on the straight, man.
Yeah, we have noticed the Ford's been quite strong in a straight line this season with the BOP adjustments that iRacing put through this season. So surprised we aren't seeing more Fords out on track, to be honest. So, but it was
Yeah,
good.
I
Yeah.
would have gone with the Ford, but I just I've driven it in IMSA and I just didn't quite like it on this track, so I went with the Porsche instead. And let's just say that it's probably been a good choice.
So next week we move on to Monza and the GP layout. Obviously, there may be a few tweaks setup-wise for that track compared to this one. Is that a track you look forward to heading to?
Yeah, I like it. The thing is, I'm not very good at it. I seem to crash a lot at Monza, so we'll see how it goes. Maybe I'll join in. Depends.
Okay. Well, congratulations again on your drive tonight. We do hope to see you returning throughout the series. And is there anyone you would like to thank before we wrap things up with you?
Yeah, I'd like to thank my team, Team Bushwink Racing, aka TBR, and our sponsors, of course. And that's it, pretty much.
Not a problem. Thanks for joining us again tonight, Owen. And yeah, good luck for the future races.
Thank you very much. See you guys later. Bye.
So that was Erwin Woodstrat. He finished P6 in the GT class tonight. And now we have Clint Smith in the booth, and we'll get Daniel to have a chat to him.
Yeah, g'day, Clint. Congratulations, mate. Another win in the books for yourself there. How'd you find it at the tonight? The Mercedes looked pretty unstoppable again.
Yeah, good evening, guys. The Merc was good tonight. Yeah, I done a race earlier today, like one of the first sessions I were up, so just to get a feel what the setup was going to be like, and I knew it was going to be tough on the front tires. So yeah, pretty much once I got a gap, I just pretty much maintained a constant pace, and yeah, just went from there pretty much.
Yeah, well, let's touch on the tyres because we spoke about it a little bit throughout the course of the night, and we thought that there might have been some potential for a few guys, especially going from 45 minutes to an hour, may potentially consider that. How did you find the fronts sort of wearing, especially through that long turn 3 section that we have around this course?
Not too bad. If you really push it and you try to use the ABS too much, then you just chew through tires. Like earlier today, I think I went down to 43% tire wear, whereas that the race just said I was at 51. So taking it easy does really make a big difference. But yeah, you definitely notice the front end, especially in the Merc. That's when we struggle against the Audis because the Audis have a lot better tire life than what the Merc does.
Well, yeah, having that little extra weight of the engine over the front does present its own set of challenges, but for the guys like yourself that are able to get on top of it, you get clearly evident what you can do in these cars. Next week, switching from the GP layout here at Barcelona to the GP Monza circuit. A lot more straight line, a little bit more technical with the chicanes and having to get the car to break through there. Is anything we're expected to see for a setup change that you could recommend, or things that you might be able to do to necessarily get another win up on the race?
Yeah, well, as we know with Monza, everybody brings out the low downforce, so I guarantee that most people are going to be doing that as well. So it's just a matter of controlling that low downforce and who can control it better, especially going through parabolica. Obviously, you have a tendency to lose the rear end as you go through it. So, but I think now last week's race when I did the Silverstone, I didn't have the best of setups, and then I pretty much did every single race after that, and I kept struggling for front tire wear. And it wasn't until Saturday I actually discovered something in the Merc which allowed the tire life to be better, but you don't lose speed. So, and from there on, I was actually better. So, hopefully that translates to Monza next week. So, but we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we don't want you giving away all the trade secrets, mate, but by the sounds of it, certainly really starting to set you up to take a more dominant position in the championship. Before we let you get out and enjoy the race win tonight, is there anyone you'd like to thank?
Yeah, so as always, like to thank you guys, Apex TV, for your broadcast. As always, it's really good that you guys put it on. Obviously, people that support me, so Virtual Racing School, Joel Real Timing. Without them, I'll struggle a fair bit. So, Kokoda Factory supplies my liveries. Obviously, they do a beautiful job. So, and obviously my own team, CSE Sports, solo drive at the moment. So, yeah, but we'll go from there. Thanks, guys. Have a good night.
Yeah, cheers, Clint. Thanks again, mate, and congratulations on another win in the cap for yourself tonight.
Yeah, cheers, guys.
So that was Clint Smith, our GT3 race winner yet again. He's making a habit of that, which is good to see. And we'll have Scott take us through some of the upcoming broadcasts coming to you here on Apex Racing TV and the iRacing Esports Network.
Yeah, hi everyone. So the upcoming broadcast coming up on both Apex Racing TV and on the iRacing Esports Network that are covered by us. We've got later on tonight. We've got the BSR MX5 Pro Series starting at 19:15 GMT. That will be broadcasted on the iRacing Esports Network. Also with the Sim Racers World GT Championship, that'll be on Wednesday night at 1900 GMT, and the ARL TCR series on the Thursday at 8 o'clock UK time, or 1900 GMT. All three of those series are broadcasted on the iRacing Esports Network, so be sure to tune in for those series on that channel. And then coming up on Apex Racing TV as well, we've got the official iRacing IndyCar Road Championship. That'll be on Friday at the 8 PM GMT slot. That will be covered here on Apex Racing TV. On the Saturday, unfortunately there's no Euro V8s, but later on that evening we've got the official Formula Renault 3.5 Championship. That'll be the 8 PM GMT official time slot. And then on Sunday we've got the AMF GT series. That will be coming to you at 9:45 AM GMT here on Apex Racing TV for round number 7 of the championship at Le Mans. Then I'm just checking to see if we've got anything on the Monday. If the World GT Championship is on, I don't think that is on an off week, so no World GT Championship that is on an off week, but that will be back 1 week after Monday. And then on the later on the Monday evening UK time, early in the morning so early morning UK time, late evening US time, we've got the Rick Matek Sportscar Championship. That'll be on at 23:45 GMT, and then we'll be back next week for the round number 8 of the iRacing IMSA Sportscar Championship. So be sure to subscribe to both Apex Racing TV and the iRacing Esports Network to be notified of the upcoming broadcasts.
Cool. Thanks for that, Scott. And any closing thoughts, Daniel, on the race tonight or heading into Monza next week?
Look, not a lot from me. I think from what we saw tonight, and we touched on this earlier, the racing was absolutely fantastic from all the guys out there. Unfortunately, we did see a couple of little incidents at the back end of the race, but I think all in all, the guys put on some fantastic racing. Monza will represent its own set of challenges, and no doubt all the drivers that are jumping on board for that one know what they're in for, and no doubt we'll see those cars performing to the best of their abilities as well. So really looking forward to the switch off to Monza next week.
Yeah, it should be a good one. Thanks for joining us, everyone, this week. And from myself, Daniel Lee, and Scott Newton in production, thanks for tuning in, and make sure you catch all the action of the upcoming events on Apex Racing TV.